My guests today are Daren Hebold. Daren is the founder and CEO at Luxolo Financial, and he is joined by Michael Seymour, I believe, Director of Sales and Marketing at Luxolo Financial, which of course is a Bitcoin and digital assets concierge services firm. Really, we'll learn all about this today and more. But firstly, welcome to the show, Daren and Michael.
Great to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's going to be fun. Let's dive in.
It's going to be fun indeed, gentlemen. Let's dive in. What we do at the beginning of the show is we get people to introduce themselves. So let's just very briefly get you to both do that. Daren, we'll start with you. Love to just hear a little summary of your personal and professional backstory, who you are and what led you to founding Luxolo Financial.
You got it. I'll give you guys the lightning round. So, engineer background, commercial real estate background. Went to my friend's apartment in 2015 and saw him mining a Bitcoin with a butterfly onto a USB stick. And I was very intrigued, stuck with it, bought some coins in 2016. Used those as the seed capital to start Luxolo Financial in 2018, and then I met, I knew of Michael and invited him into the company shortly thereafter.
Fantastic. And Michael, let's go to you. Same thing. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. I spent most of my professional career owning and teaching at a local hot yoga studio here in Portland. Had a friend from there talk to me about Bitcoin in 2013, and we were buying Bitcoin together when Coinbase first opened. And then on the early run-up, I sold pretty much everything that I had, regrettably, but I started another business and that did okay, but the opportunity cost still kind of stings. He and I stayed in touch. Things get in the way and this and that. I ended up taking a master's degree in informatics and we're getting back into the whole side of digital technology. And that's when I bumped into Daren again. And he was looking for somebody to help him with his sales team. And, part of being a yoga studio owner has a lot to do with essentially helping people. It's a very much a service-oriented industry. And that's really my passion, is just trying to help people. And so we joined forces, and I've been helping, his clients, this is our clients at this point, figure out what to do with digital assets, how to keep them safe, where we get them, all that.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like, both of you in your own ways could be seen as, old school Bitcoiners at this point now in 2024. So that is fantastic to see. And I'm aware also that, you guys are passionate about the role that digital assets can play in shaping our future. So I guess, it'd be good to set some context at the beginning of the discussion and just talk about, what is happening in the world, some of the problems that we face, how digital assets can potentially contribute to the solutions. So Daren, shall we start with you? Where do you want to kick off here?
I'm going to give Michael that question. He's great at setting that global economic backdrop for the rest of the conversation. Go for it.
Fantastic. The general thesis for us is that our society is increasingly technological and digital. We are all enmeshed in sort of having some interaction with a digital version of ourselves, if that's a social media profile or even a bank account these days. Certainly your cell phone contract is tied into this. We have at this point, an unstoppable foundation of digital integration. And I think that this will become increasingly familiar and ubiquitous. And it is really that premise that I see the distribution or implementation of blockchain technologies to grow exponentially from this point forward. There's too many advantages to blockchain technology with regards to transparency, the immutable record, the accountability, and the sort of empowerment of individuals with regards to having self-custody or taking ownership and responsibility of their assets. These advantages are too obvious to not become leveraged by corporate giants, and then from there to become adopted as a familiar way to transact with the world at large and ultimately with each other. And so we're trying to position ourselves and position our clients in a way that they can profit from this shift in the way we do things.
Yes, very well said. And look, as Americans, you're obviously both Americans, you're based in the US. I would assume that many of your clients, if not most of them, are US. But it's an interesting time in America. Sometimes Americans have their own view of what is happening with the US, with the dollar, and then different countries around the world, other populations have their own view as well. Of course, there's kind of a big currency war going on, not just with, within blockchain, different chains, but, the different fiat currencies are kind of competing as well. So, how do you feel about what's happening with the US dollar at the moment? And, is the US dollar still strong enough to be that kind of reserve currency of the world? What is happening with other nation states? How does this affect Bitcoin? Big questions, Michael.
Yeah, and I'll try to be brief. The dollar is the reserve currency, has been for it's basically since the petrodollar compact in the early 70s, where we, by creed or de facto, agreed with Saudi Arabia to only settle oil in dollars, and that allowed for a massive distribution of dollars throughout international markets, and other countries need to have dollars on their balance sheet in order to participate in oil trading. So that's sort of set the foundation, and gave the United States and the US dollar a tremendous amount of power. That's not going away soon. There's too much sort of install base, if you would. There's dollars everywhere, and they're not going to quickly evaporate or be replaced, although the tide is changing. And in a similar way, one of the founding principles of blockchain technology is decentralization. So we're slowly starting to pull authority out of very concentrated power centers and spread that around into nodes or other vectors where it is not so closely concentrated. And I think that's playing out in the political arena and in the fiat currency arena as well. The rise of the BRICS nations and that alliance, and it's growing stronger with more countries getting pledged to that allegiance. By every couple of years, it's growing. There's more than 40 that are signing up to that alliance presently. These are forces that are in play. They may not have the amount of strength of the US dollar yet, but this is changing. The other factor involved here is the distribution of stablecoins that are pegged to the US dollar, which is pretty massive. And so this, we might see treasury bond markets decrease in their overall impact, but some of that is going to get absorbed. If not, more of that will become displaced by the distribution of stablecoins pegged to the US dollar. So it's not a clear path for dollar destruction or massive debasement. I don't see that in the near future. I see the multipolar aspect of sharing that responsibility, and in some ways, I think that's a great thing. I don't think that unilateral power is good for society. I think sharing that power amongst a sort of a coalition is more beneficial for the blossoming of humanity and the blossoming even of technological development or social structures that can give rise to a situation where it's not so fractured. where the wealth gap right now is unimaginable. In some ways, we have two worlds where there's a certain group of individuals or people or groups that have immense freedoms, and many, if not billions of others that don't share in that. And I think that the notion of decentralizing an economy is going to spread to decentralizing that power, and ultimately that gives rise to more freedom spread throughout the world.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. And of course, there are some areas of the world, or some nation states, if you like, that appear to be much more open to the idea of blockchain. Certainly, giving incentives for blockchain-based businesses or crypto businesses to come and set up in their region, bring some investment capital. I think Dubai, Singapore, the Bahamas, El Salvador, of course, probably leading the charge in terms of their Bitcoin initiatives. In the US, it's kind of seems like it's a different scenario, with even it looks like Donald Trump supporting Bitcoin a little bit. And the Democrats have been fairly adversarial over the last 4 years, so it's different in all parts of the world, isn't it?
It is, and and I think what's happening in the United States has more political influences than it has economic influences, and though politics is a big and profitable game in the United States, and I think they have because of that, it's almost like there's more incentive to play politics than there is to finally get their act together and regulate the technology properly. I think that switch is flipping soon, and they'll play catch up, and they'll play catch up hard, and that they don't. The United States doesn't want to lose its share of clout and intellectual technology or intellectual property or technological development. They'll once the regulatory framework is cleared up, once the politics is kind of set aside, and whoever wins in this next election cycle, I think we'll take a break from the political agendas and get back down to business, and that's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, makes sense. One of the other big trends that is happening in the world that I think has the potential to be extremely disruptive, frankly, of course, is AI. And, I think, Michael, you said at the beginning of the show, the world is just getting more digital. And obviously that is true. And in one respect, the easiest way to describe Bitcoin is simply as digital money for a digital world. But, AI changes this again. There's a lot of change coming this way. Some of it will potentially obviously be very beneficial for society, but it's up to us to ensure that is the case, because the potential for disruption in a bad way is very high as well. But yeah, how do you guys think about the kind of the changes that are potentially coming down the pipeline?
Well, you said that the most important thing there, it's up to us. We sit on sort of a precipice, for lack of a better word, that AI is a tool, and we can use that tool to free up our creative potential. AI can take care of a lot of the superficial or menial or tasks that come along with conducting business, or even organizing our own lives, managing a family. Even AI can free up some of our time to be more creative and to, more extensive, I think, in a way of developing society and finding systems that are more beneficial to, a greater number of people. Better way to handle our resources. I think there's a lot of positive applications for AI, and very soon, and already there's personal AIs that you can download or install onto your personal devices and start to program. And as that language model or that learning machine gets more familiar with your tasks and needs, it will become more powerful assistant to you. So, but that's up to us to take ownership of. And in some ways, it's akin to the self-custody notion of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, is that you need to accept the responsibility of that custody. One of the foundations of the blockchain is trustless. And that's all well and good, but we've relied on these institutions to provide that service of trust for so long. If we take that trust away from those institutions, we have to embody it ourselves. And that is, that's in some ways, that's a sort of a spiritual transformation, because we have to start acting trustworthy. Our choices and our decisions then have consequences that we would otherwise outsource. We can't outsource those consequences anymore if we're going to be the trusted custodians of our wealth or the trusted custodians of our tools like our artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The world is changing faster than most people think. One thing that doesn't change, or hasn't changed a lot, I suppose, is, of course, the Bitcoin core code. Bitcoin reliably just chugs away in the background as new blocks are found. Of course, there's, while new Bitcoins are released into the system, the actual money supply doesn't change. There'll only ever be 21 million. We can at least rely on this in an ever-changing world. I wonder, maybe we should start to learn a bit more about Luxolo Financial. And Daren, I believe you said at the beginning in your introduction, you said, you started the company with some early profits from being reasonably early to Bitcoin. Is that the case?
Yeah, you got it. And the idea was to put Bitcoins in everyday retail consumers' hands. And, that's exactly what we've done. And we were, I guess you could say, lamenting recently that here we are 6 years in to this company. And really, that still remains the core business. There's, as much as everybody in our industry likes to get excited about introducing new service lines and having all of these fancy icons on their website that consumers can click on, what remains to be the most necessary service line right now is just that core on-off ramp exchange. And so we just continue to do that better and better as time goes on, and stick to our roots, which is when we first opened, we had and we still have today in Portland, Maine, a bricks and mortar Main Street retail location where consumers can walk in the front door, be greeted by a knowledgeable human person, and buy Bitcoins. And you can either use our ATM or our exchange desk, which Michael's in charge of, or now we've introduced an app. So you have the Luxolo app available on the Droid and Apple stores to buy and sell Bitcoins and the popular other 7 cryptos. So really, as sort of maybe rudimentary as it seems, that remains the most important service line right now, is still getting people into crypto. I think, Gemini or somebody published some statistics, and it said that still only like 22% of Americans own crypto, and it's still a novelty. It's almost like a collector's item until we develop all of these use cases for these Bitcoins. As you said a moment ago, the network is very, very reliable and stable. Great. The price is appreciating commensurately. Great. So investors are starting to see the use case there, as we're seeing with corporations and even governments placing large bets on Bitcoin investments. Good. Now, it's just happening all too slowly as to what the next big use cases are. We'll get into them in a minute, but we have a little bit of a roadmap for what we think are the next ones. But it's not like it's not happening nearly as fast as I think our industry thought everything was going to unfold.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's certainly a valid observation, I think, Daren. But you said it yourself, something like 20% of Americans own crypto, which is actually very high, I reckon. That's here in New Zealand, where I live. I think 5% of New Zealanders own any crypto. So, wow. you guys are doing quite well. Even if I'm sure it skews young, though, right?
It might. I will tell you, we have the most luck. I mean, without giving away any confidential or proprietary information, yeah, our demographic is more Andy, more like I would say like 50 to 70-year-old women.
Right.
Appear to be the predominant investor class for us. I think they're the ones making the larger ticket purchases. That's who we cater to. I think the kids are playing around with meme coins and a little bit of light duty DeFi, but they aren't really seeing the light. I hate to be disparaging, but they're not seeing this as an investment grade asset. They're seeing it as a novelty or an alternative to Venmo or a silly game even. So, and part of it is, and I'm very empathetic to the younger generation, is they don't have discretionary income floating around to go buy things with. I mean, they're getting creamed, as we all are, with inflation. And especially the youngsters who in their 20s and 30s just getting pounded with rent increases and, groceries and everything else that inflation is raging through. And their paycheck is by no means keeping up. So it's not entirely their fault that they don't have the ability to make these investments. It's ironic, though, that how critical it is to their generation.
I couldn't agree more. I'm fascinated, gentlemen, by this idea that you have a bricks and mortar retail store in Portland, Maine, and just love to hear a little bit more about that, how that sort of typical experience goes when someone walks in, and that experience of trying to convert communicate the good word of Bitcoin one person at a time, I guess, but also, and then just tell us a little bit about, I guess, your different customer buckets or target markets, if you like. You said, older females are obviously one of them. So just love to hear about that brick and mortar experience, and also the different segments of people that you serve, I guess.
Right. It's a bit complicated. We've gone through some changes over the years. Historically, we would operate on a very personal basis. A client would call or come to me, or sometimes email, with questions, and I would help to resolve their questions. I would help them to choose a particular wallet that was safe, that I had experience with, and helping them. Because at the time we did not have our own, we would have to perform all of our due diligence, our KYC and AML and OFAC sanction screenings. And once our clients sort of passed through those hoops, they would wire us money, and upon receipt of the wire, we'd send them Bitcoin to the wallet that they've designated. And that was, that's what I enjoy about the industry, is helping people to overcome their anxieties and their sort of uncertainties about the technology, about interacting with an unfamiliar asset class. Since we've launched our app, it has become a little bit less person to person in some respects. All of the exchange functionality is now transpiring through the technology that's built into the application. So there's, while I'm still involved in conversations, I'm not really doing anything for them. I'm telling them how to do things for themselves. So which comes back to that same ethos of, this is self-empowering. This is gaining responsibility, building trust within ourselves as people. And I think that's important.
Yeah. How have you found the experience of operating a Bitcoin or crypto business in the US? You said before, Daren, that it was time for, I guess, the different regulatory bodies to try and be helpful if they laid out some strong regulations for the industry that people could understand and follow. But we had choke point 2.0 famously, issues like that. How do you think about all this?
Yeah. I'll try to make it relatively quick, but it has been nothing short of savage. It's been very, very, very difficult to stay in business. I would go so far as to say, it's an intentional takedown of the industry, the crypto industry within the U.S. Under the current political administration. For whatever reason, it's just been deemed a industry non grata in the same way that in the past the firearms industry or other industries have been shunned and eschewed by the banks and investors and such. So we have really, really taken some tumbles, and through the process that Michael alluded to a moment ago, we really reached a point where we couldn't operate under our own internal licensing scheme. We really had to outsource that portion of our business to a larger corporation who can handle those matters more effectively with a much larger compliance and legal staff. It changes things for us. It makes it, of course, it's a less profitable endeavor for us, and it's a little less personally because we are routing people through our third-party partner, but still they are our clients and we're taking good care of them with Michael's customer service department. So we're still able to fulfill our mission. It's just a different environment. I glossed over some of the other sordid details, and we were debanked twice in 2022 for not doing anything wrong. There was no wrongdoing. It was just a discretionary choice by these two different banks who we were dealing with, who were under immense pressure from these regulators to not touch crypto at any cost for no particular reason. I mean, it was really sad, and we lost a lot of money, and we disappointed a lot of customers because we were having to be closed for a period of an extended period of time in 2022. I will never forget that pain, and that is not something we should be proud of as a country, to have taken a blossoming, burgeoning new industry that investors were excited and enthusiastic and making money, and curtail the efforts of reputable firms. I'd say most firms in our space were reputable. It's just that the media chose to latch onto the spectacular flaming zeppelins of those companies I won't name that made some immoral and unethical decisions, and of course went bankrupt. So, but by no means was that the overall trend of the industry. I think by and large the industry is reputable people who share our same ethos of wanting to spread the opportunity to build wealth and sovereignty.
Yeah, it's so sad when you hear these stories of crypto companies being debanked, and it's not just unique to the US. It does happen all around the world. It's just always been very hard for crypto companies to get banking services. Hopefully that will slowly start to change. I'd love to hear a bit more, I suppose, in terms of where you guys are at right now. I presume that Luxolo Financial, you're on slightly firmer footing with your banking relationships and your clients and the kind of the products and services that you're offering.
It appears better now. Yes, indeed, we're stable and operating in a sustainable manner at this point. And moreover, having just gone to the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, perhaps you were there. The writing on the wall is that if either Trump or Kennedy gets into office, either one of them is going to be extremely pro crypto, and no matter the particulars about what they decide to do with policies and legislation, in any event, I think it will foster a significantly more healthy ecosystem where the banks are no longer persecuted for serving our industry. Our firms are no longer persecuted by our regulators. And frankly, people will be able to come out from hiding and basically innovate again, as opposed to just going into total hunker down self-defense mode. So that feels really good. The fact that moment is only 6 months away feels really good. And so I think even to your point a moment ago, I think still more banking options will emerge. I had some specific conversations, and there are already 1, 2, 3 more banks who are completely ready to embrace our industry in a more meaningful way come election time.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's going to be a fascinating election, not just for the US, but for the rest of us around the world are watching as well. It always is. Yeah. So, what about in terms of new products and services? I guess the product roadmap that is in the pipeline for Luxolo Financial. What are you guys working on? What can you tell us about what you're doing now and what is coming up in the future?
You got it. You got it. All right. So we're number one service line, Andy, that we're sticking with now is this crypto exchange. So fiat on-off ramp for Bitcoin and Ethereum and the other top 6 cryptos. Number 2 service line that we're working on actively will be partnering up with a reputable lending platform. So our customers who have accumulated all these Bitcoins over the last 6 years finally can have access to that liquidity. So this was a huge epiphany to me that by some miracle, that portion of our industry survived. So there is still a number of reputable lenders who we are exploring partnerships with, who are able to give you, generally speaking, up to a 50% LTV loan on your crypto, increasingly reasonable interest rates, and kind of safety guides whereas if Bitcoin price drops sharply, they give you 1 in 2 and sometimes 3 chances to add liquidity or redeem your loan or otherwise prevent a liquidation. So it's a more friendly environment. And when you bundle that with a 50% loan, start getting to a safety zone where like a small business person like myself could say, hey, we'll take a portion of our treasury and borrow 50% of that as fiat and self-fund our own business line of credit, for example, or purchasing some new equipment or paying for some new software development. These things become possible. And frankly, we're working on showing consumers how that is actually preferable to going to a bank and just looking for some type of a traditional finance business line of credit. That is actually a significantly more difficult and unlikely scenario than achieving a line of credit using your crypto. So that's service line number 2 that's well on its way to hitting our app for our customer base. And then as we look into the future, this is not near-term stuff. We do have to wait for more favorable legislation, but giving our clients access to the DeFi marketplace. So consumers have lost the opportunity to earn yield on their stable coins in the U.S. I don't know what it's like in your neck of the woods or around the world, but it's really been, I guess the specter, the threat from the regulators is so freaking onerous that there's really no providers in America who are able to offer stablecoin yield right now. It's out of reach, it's out of touch, and so I do see that tide turning due to some specific events that are happening legislatively and the regulatory environment that are going to allow that to happen again. And we want to offer that in our app. That's a very logical next step. And then after that, we're talking, 3 to 5 years for these next 2 service lines. After that, we don't know. It's anyone's guess what's going to be important at that moment in time. We're hoping for a hyper Bitcoinization economy where, still more individuals, corporations, and governments are investing and in this really pristine collateral is what I call it. I see that as really the use, is if everybody can have a nest egg of some Bitcoin, it's like an ever spring, a wellspring for them of never-ending expansion of capital that you can use for yourself. And so, as you can see, with that scenario, lending is key to that. So we're working very hard on that one.
Fantastic. Well, lots of stuff happening, gentlemen. What about, I had something in my notes, something about Lost at Sea, some kind of game idea. What's that all about? That looks kind of interesting.
Sure. We briefly, this has to do with retail engagement and sort of the especially the younger generation are more familiar with I guess video games, really, in general. That seems to be a younger demographic anyway. But also the idea of creating a culture or a community that has some interest to it other than just the perfunctory service that we provide. So, not just going somewhere to buy and sell cryptocurrencies, but going somewhere to have a little fun and a little adventure. And so when we rebranded a couple of years ago, we chose a sailboat as our logo. And part of that had to do with the idea of independence and freedom and in some ways prosperity. So we're working out the logistics of a tiered reward structure that involves earning points for various transactions or exchanges that you perform, and then using those points to embark on a treasure hunt lost at sea. So the idea is that, partly embracing historical fiction, there's plenty of treasure that's lost at sea, and we want to go find that. And that, that will involve clues, that will involve obstacles, that will involve personalities that you can meet along the way, just as a way to keep things fun and in some ways entertaining and grow a community that is, more engaging. It's tough to attract a retail market. One of the things that we're working on with the collateralized loans is targeting business entities, because you can actually talk to a CFO, and I can in some ways solicit an individual that's in a position to make a decision that they benefit their company, they benefit our company. Retail marketing is completely different. You just kind of have to put yourself out there and hope that people come to you, because you can't cold call 200 million people. It just doesn't work that way. So bringing in a game that can create a culture and a theme, I think is a good strategy for us. That's what we're hoping to accomplish with that.
Yep, sounds great. All right. Well, look, as we start to finish off, gentlemen, do you want to just take it in turns, both of you? Again, just make the case for why people should come and look at the services that you guys offer at Luxolo Financial, and tell people, what is the best way for them to do that? What should they do? Where should they go? Yeah, who wants to kick it off?
I'll keep it brief. I appreciate that, Andy. So what Luxolo does best is really the concierge service, one-on-one customer engagement. I think when you go to the large exchanges, you're going to be issued into a trouble ticket system if you need assistance, whereas we have no problem spending an hour on the phone with a prospective customer, and whether or not they do business with us is downstream. We're okay either way. So you're going to get that concierge service. We have very similar exchange rates to most of the industry competitors, and you're going to find that we're ethical people, real people that you can look up, not just a faceless organization. And that's going to play into, that trust is going to play into a lot of our future service lines. You can find our website at Luxolo, LUXOLO.io, and also our app Luxolo on the Droid, Apple, and stores, and download it there. Would you add anything to this, Michael?
We're on the social networks: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So the Luxolo is our handle on all these places. So look us up there, give us a follow. We have a little bit of YouTube content. We're looking to build that out a little bit more. So like you said, the point with us, and the advantage that we have, is that we're somebody that's easy to access and easy to talk to, and we want to help. We may be targeting an older demographic because they're more familiar or comfortable with actually having a conversation rather than the soft service app culture that maybe the younger demographic is drawn more to. That's what we're here for. We want to help this sort of generation gap, the older people to understand the technology, really in a way to help set up the younger generation. In some ways, we see older people buying cryptocurrencies as gifts for their descendants. Help set them up. They might not be valuable this year, but 10 years from now, that may be a really substantial gift.
Yeah, that's very well said, gentlemen. And I think there's always a place for that personal concierge service, the personal touch. Just a conversation can go a long way. And I think it makes all the difference, especially, as you say, for maybe, older people who, just want to have a little bit more of a personal journey. So fantastic stuff. Really enjoyed talking to you both today. Listeners, of course, the link is in the show notes, but luxolo.io. Thank you so much, Michael and Daren. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Cheers, Andy. Yeah, see you soon.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah.